Everybody, in this video, we're going to start dealing with some of the translations into proofs that have to do with disjunctions, namely numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let's get into it.
All right, now let's take a look at number 5. So number 5 says this. Either Busalis or Orr will win the election for the governor of Nebraska. Now you might think that's an XOR, but again, if it doesn't explicitly say but not both, just take it as an inclusive OR. So that would be Busalis or, and it could be both because you could have a tie in the election. So we've got that one, that's line 1. Line 2, if Busalis wins, Nebraska will have its first female governor. If Orr wins, Nebraska will have its first female governor. Solve 4, Nebraska will have its first female governor. Let's go through it. Arrow out? Nope. What are Solons? Nope. All okay. Although we do have arrows here, no left side matches, no right side contraries. And out? No. And in? You can, but it doesn't go anywhere. Double negation? You can, doesn't go anywhere. Wedge in? No, I don't need to add on a wedge. Wedge out. So what you look for in a wedge out is, first of all, do you have an OR statement of either kind, XOR or inclusive OR? And then look for one of the OR parts on the left side of an arrow and the other OR part on the left side of the arrow. So you want to see the disjuncts themselves as antecedents in their respective conditional statements. Said a little more technically. Do we have that phenomenon going on here? Do we have an OR statement? Yeah, line 1. Okay, great. Is one of the OR parts on the left side of an arrow? Yep. Is the other OR part, the other disjunct itself, on the left side of an arrow? Yep. Well, then what you can do then, you can take the results and put them together. Now, if the results are identical, because it'd be a tautology, that is, it'd be like super, super obvious. This is the same thing as saying, oh, C wedge C, which again, you don't even need to put that. You can put that if you really want to. We just get C. So in this case, it would be, what's going to happen is, Busalis wins, it's going to have its first female governor. If Orr wins, it's going to have its first female governor. So what do we know? Nebraska is going to have its first female governor, period. No matter which route you take, it leads to here. So if I did a diagram of this, I could even put it this way. So look, Busalis is going to win, or Orr is going to win. If Busalis wins, Nebraska has its first female governor. If Orr wins, Nebraska has its first female governor. So this is happening no matter what, and that's all this is doing here. This problem is actually trying to solve that. That is wedge out, and I just put where were these 3 pieces. Here, it's really obvious here, just lined up just right. En deux, trois. 1, 2, 3. There it is. Number 6. So we've got A and B. We want to get C wedge A wedge D. Now a lot of wedges here, not wedges to start. And also I see different letters here, different constituent components that aren't even over here. So it looks like some wedge ins are probably going to be what's going to happen. So yeah, if you got wedge something and you don't see that to start with, you're probably literally adding that stuff on with addition. That's wedge in. So let's go down the list. No stuff with arrows, we don't need to worry about. No stuff with double arrows. And out, yep, there's a dot there. Cleave it in twain. I get these 2 things. And out on line 1 for both. Then arrow out, no. Monotones, no. Double arrows, no. And out, already did it. And in, that's not going to get you anywhere. Double negation, no squigglage here whatsoever. Doesn't help you. Wedge in, yeah. So look, we've got this thing. So all we're going to have to do is wedge this on, and then wedge this onto that. Watch this. So yeah, if you find yourself stuck, and then you look and see, okay, do I have wedges in the final result? See if these are things that you can just attach. So watch this. I'm going to add or attach the C onto the A. So that's a wedge in onto line 2. Looks like I stapled this C onto A. Now this is its own thing that I'm going to then attach the D onto. Watch this. So I've got C wedge A, and I'm going to go wedge D. That's a wedge in on line 4, and we're done. Number 7 is one of those where knowing the rules and knowing them well and having this list makes things much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and say this. Now, with a lot of the problems up to this point, there have been multiple ways to do them. That's the case here too. There are multiple ways to do them. I'm going to go over 2, and I'm going to show you why you want to make sure you go through that list exhaustively to make sure. Is there anything I can do to make my life easier? So here's what we got. Squiggle E wedge squiggle F, and we want to get squiggle E dot F. Neither E nor not F. We're going to end up with not E and F. If you just quickly go down the list and do an arrow out, no. Monotones, no. Double arrow out, no. And out, no. And in, no. Double negation, no. That doesn't change that into that. Wedge in, nope. Wedge out, nope. And then we've got these 3 options. De Morgan's law. Well, I can change any one of these. Material implication, conjunctive, conditionality. Any of these I want to do. And what you want to look for, especially, is would it be advantageous to turn these things into something else? So De Morgan's Law, if you want to turn a wedge into an and, give that a go. Material implication, you want to turn a wedge into an arrow, vice versa for all of these. And conjunctive conditionality, do you need to turn an arrow into an and, or vice versa? Well, what do we have here? Let's try De Morgan's Law out. That allows us to turn a wedge into a dot. Because look, we got a wedge here, we got a dot here. Maybe it'll end up being the same thing. So keep the letters exactly as they are. Change the symbol. So we're going to change this to a dot instead of a wedge. And then what you do to do a De Morgan's Law is you just completely flip the negation slots. So if they're on, you're going to deactivate them. If they're off, we're going to activate them. So the outside is on, we're going to turn it off. Left is off, we're going to turn it on. Right is on, we're going to turn it off. And so we did this, De Morgan's Law, line 1, and look, we actually just got our goal because of De Morgan's Law. Knowing De Morgan's Law, so knowing these shortcuts here, these conversions, saves you a lot of time. I say it saves you a lot of time because imagine you didn't have these, how would you solve this problem? So now I'm going to do an alternate version of this problem where you don't have De Morgan's Law at your disposal. What does it look like? So we could say this is version 1, and this is really what you should do. Let's look at version 2. Watch how this goes. If you don't have these, and you go down this list, it doesn't look like you can do anything, but since the goal is a dot, if you don't do De Morgan's Law, and you do this proof the long way, I'm going to say the hard way, and you see we've got a dot as the goal, well, your last move then is going to be a and in. It will be. And that means you would need to get two things. In order for the last move to be an and in, and you put them together, remember when your goal is a dot, that's probably what's going to happen. It is here if you don't do De Morgan's Law. Again, you can be done in one step if you just know to recognize stuff like that. But otherwise, if you have to go the long way, watch all you got to do. You need two things. You need squiggle E and you'd need F by themselves. Right? So this is a goal that you need to get, and this is a goal that you need to get. Do we have either one of those? Nope. So what would you do to get these? They're not arrows. Go down the list. Okay, if we're going to try and reverse engineer these, we'd need to do indirect proof for each. So let's do that. Let's try and get this thing. Provisionally assume E. I'm starting an indirect proof, so I'm after a contradiction. When you're trying to look for a contradiction, look and see, is there something I already got that I can build the contrary of? Actually, yeah. So look, and look where you have squiggles on the outside. See if you got squiggles either on the outside or on the left of something. It's real easy for me to build a contrary to this because I can just add a squiggle F onto E. That's a wedge in on line 2. And now look at line 3 and line 1. They're contraries. Now look, they're hefty, but look, this and the exact same thing with a squiggle in front of it. So that's a contradiction. And that, remember, the last move in an indirect proof within the subproof is the and in, the putting together of the contraries. So what pieces do we put together there? 3 and 1. That means I can say, yep, squiggle E is a thing. Indirect proof, 2 through 4. Now, 50% of what I need is done. What's the other thing I need? I need to get F. So if I need to get F, I'm going to provisionally assume it's contrary, which is going to be squiggle F, provisional assumption for an indirect proof. So I want a contradiction here too. But remember, the stuff 2 through 4 was its own separate subproof side quest, so it's off limits. The method is going to be very similar. Remember, the only things in play for the subproof are 1, 5, and 6. The subproof and then the stuff that's outside in the regular proof. 1 and 5, 2 through 4 off limits. Well, I've still got this in play, and actually I can just build the contrary just like I did here in this subproof, just the other way. I'm going to add an E onto this squiggle F on the left side. Look, so E, wedge, squiggle F. Now this time what I'm doing here, what I did before, is I added a squiggle F onto E and got this. This time what I'm doing is I'm adding an E onto squiggle F. So that's a wedge in on line 6, and then this is the contrary of line 1 for this subproof. So I can just go E, wedge, squiggle F, and the exact same thing, the squiggle in front of it. Now again, you might be thinking, oh, I already had that in line 4. That was in this version. This is in a different side quest, subproof. Okay, it doesn't apply here. So that's and in this case, 7 and 1. And now we've been able to say indirectly, okay, yeah, F is true. Indirect proof, 6 through 8. We got the other thing that we needed. So now we can just and in lines 5 and 9. And what do we get? Squiggle E and F and in 5 and 9. And the proof is done. Now look, this took 10 steps. I don't think this is the most ridiculous proof ever, but which would you rather do? This 10-step version or the 2-step version right here? Like, if this one, you do this and you're done, and it works. That's why knowing these and looking out, can I do these, where it would be helpful? Well, yeah, it really here it's helpful because it made the proof done instantly instead of having to do all this. Now this proof here actually zooms in on this, showing that it works. But I would much rather do this than this. So make sure you know these and you can look out for them. Otherwise, you end up spending a lot more time doing proofs than you should be. And actually, after this set of quizzes, like the quiz 8 is going to be a quiz where the goal is to learn a bunch of shortcuts to try and slice through these things much more quickly. Number 8. Dennis's in-court statement contradicted the story he told the state attorney. All that is just C. If this is so, well, if what is so. So we know that what we just said on the left side of an arrow. If that is so, then what? Then he either lied to the jury, so here's what's on the right side of the arrow. He either lied to the jury or to the state attorney, or perhaps both. So that's letting you know one or the other, not an XOR. Yeah, that's why it said that. Or perhaps both. Provided that he lied to the jury. Alright, so provided that means if he lied to the jury, then he did not cooperate with the state. And, since the sentence starts with and, we can ignore it. And if he lied to the state's attorney, then he also did not cooperate with the state. And there's actually a fifth assumption here in the way that I'm going to translate this. There's a way that it might be something else. But since the next sentence says since, that makes it sound like here's another reason. So, since Dennis's cooperating with the state is a necessary condition. Alright, so there's an arrow, and his cooperating with the state would be on the right side of the arrow. Since his cooperating with the state was a necessary condition for dropping the charge of murder. So a necessary condition for what? Not being charged with murder. Well, because of that, therefore, the state will charge him with murder. Now, with that in play, let's go about our business. So, first of all, do we have any arrows not in parentheses? Yeah, we've got 4 of them. Any left side matches? Yeah, 2 and 1. What does that do? Unlocks J, wedge, A. That's arrow out, 2 and 1. Can we do another arrow out? No. Modus tollens? No. There's no double arrows here, so I don't need to worry about that. Any dots I can break apart? No. Any and ins to make? No. Double negations? No. Wedge in? No. There's an M over here eventually, so I don't need to worry about that. Wedge out. Now remember, what you look for in a wedge out is, do you have an or statement? We do. And I guess I should say not in parentheses. So look, there's our or statement. Now look at the left or part, the left disjunct. Is it on the left side of an arrow somewhere too? Yep. So now look at the other or part, the other disjunct. Is this disjunct also on the left side of another arrow somewhere? Yep. So what that means is you can take those 2 results and say this thing or this thing. Or if they're identical, you can just say, okay, that thing, and they are identical. So what that means is we're going to get with a wedge out, just squiggle S. Wedge out 6, 3, and 4. So what this is saying is J is going to happen or A is going to happen, maybe both. If J happens, it leads to squiggle S. If A happens, it leads to squiggle S. So no matter which one of these happens, or both of them do, squiggle S is happening. That's what we just said. Now, can we do an arrow out? Nope. Can we do modus tollens? Yeah. Look at line 5. The right side of the arrow is S. We just got squiggle S. What that means is, since the way modus tollens works, if you got an arrow and you got the contrary of the right side, you get the contrary of the left side of that arrow. So what would be the contrary of squiggle M? And really, there's 2 options you've got here. You could say squiggle, squiggle M. But when you're making deductions like this, you can also just say the contrary of squiggle M. I believe it's intuitive that the contrary of squiggle M is M. If you really wanted to, you could put squiggle, squiggle M and then double negate it. But look, we've got that. Modus tollens, 5 and 7. Number 8 is done.
That was numbers 5 through 8. Translations into proofs on disjunctions. What I'm going to do in the next video is we're going to continue doing some more translations into proofs. See you next time.